Hey team, welcome back to another incredible episode of the Intentional Agribusiness Leader podcast. This is your host, Mark Jewell, and I'm joined today by somebody who I'm very excited actually to have a conversation with and excited to share him with you. He has been in roles such as the CEO of CropLife America. We're talking a 45-year history in the ag trade associations. Today, he's been involved with things like National FFA Foundation, Soil Health Institute, Wheat Foundation, Grand President of Alpha Gamma Rho Fraternity. Sorry to all you farmhouse guys. Don't hate on us just because we got some AGR boys on here today, but we're going to bring a good show for you and share some insights and some wisdom on leadership. So I'm excited. And so just welcome Jay Vroom to the show. Glad to have you.
Thanks, Mark. Delight to be able to join you and talk to some of your regular podcast followers.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited as well. All right, Jay, you do get the same opening question that everybody gets. So what does it mean for you to be intentional?
In the shortest version possible, the answer is listening with real intent, right? A lot of us hear, but we don't listen. And as I think back on a 50-year career in American agriculture and literally around the world, working in industries that are primarily associated with crop inputs, I've seen more failures associated with people not listening than almost anything else I can think of. And, we're all human and we all have lots of human frailties. But to me, the single frailty that challenges us most universally is just not listening. And when you listen and truly then begin to empathize with people that you're listening to, suddenly I think your words and your actions and your leadership just takes on a dimension that's so powerful. So to me, it's just simple as listening, but it's not as simple as hearing, it's listening.
Beautiful. I love it. What would you say, like what pro tips could you hand to some of us young guys out here who we're caught up in it, man? Like it's just distraction after distraction. There's fires to put out. There's lots of things up. How do I remember to stop and listen when I'm in the battles of
Yeah. Well, I've been reflecting on this, particularly in this last few years that I've been involved in Alpha Gamma Rho fraternity, which, as you point out, is an important agricultural leadership organization. And it really relates back to my roots as being a 4-H'er at age 9 in Bureau County, Illinois, that led to me being recruited by my VOAG teacher. He came to visit me and my parents after my 7th grade year in middle school to recruit me. As I realized later, he was there to talk to my parents, and I was kind of a witness to this conversation. And he explained to me that, I'd had great experience in 4-H. That would lead to him being my VOAG teacher. I joined FFA. All of that would lead to me being able to qualify to be admitted to the University of Illinois College of Agriculture. I'd be a member of Alpha Gamma Rho fraternity, and the rest of my life would be just fine. And that was exactly spot on. I don't know how he could have been any more prescient than that brief conversation that summer of my span between 7th and 8th grade. And so from there, I got to start working in ag trade associations after finishing college. And so again, as I'm reflecting back in the last few years of being on the AGR board and having, the necessity to think more about what does it mean to be in college these days and be a young person, it really has struck me how many other distractions there are. I know for certain that we thought we were busy and had lots of things to have to do and get to do as college undergraduates. And very little time to get them done. But compared to today's distractions with social media and mobile telephone devices, and the internet is everywhere, and everybody has an absolute opinion on the internet, right? There's no middle
Mhm.
ground anywhere.
Yeah,
Uh, it's very difficult to stay focused, right? So, and
absolutely.
yet I think we all know inherently that the only way you get things done, particularly things that are complex and challenging, and especially in our agricultural world where we all have to get into very narrow specialization silos, whether it's within an industry. I ended up kind of being with the opportunity to pursue the crop inputs industry for
Yep.
basically all of my career. And the more you know, the more you realize you don't know, and you've got to learn all the time, and you don't have time to pay attention to something else. And so for me, it was crop agriculture, and have spent very little time paying attention to animal agriculture, which, as
Mhm.
we all remember, we grow crops mainly to feed livestock, right? So
Right.
uh, I've enjoyed paying a little more attention in the last few years to the livestock industry and working across both sectors. But it's incredibly challenging to stay focused, and yet that's the
Mhm.
only way you get things done. And it is especially true with regard to leadership. It's so easy to not stay on task and distract the folks that you're responsible for and helping to lead by sending mixed messages, or
Mhm.
things communicate things that aren't relevant to the focused objective.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's as you say, right? We thought we were busy before, and now we have all these other
Oh yeah.
things stacked and stacked and stacked on top of it, and so it's more important than ever, I think. And that's why this show, to be honest with you, Jay, was why I started the show. It's because for me, I know and I've noticed that every time that I have grown resentful of my situation, whether it would be of a relationship with a person, resentful in my business, resentful of a customer, whatever the situation may be, is almost always because I've lacked intention. And to take your definition, right? The intention being the skill set and the the care to actually stop and listen, to be present and listen, and to hear someone and make someone feel heard. When you do that, you
Yeah.
reduce the chances of those resentful things happening because you've actually been engaged with that person, not just focused on the next thing or thinking about something else while being in conversation. And it's
Yeah.
incredibly challenging to do, but it's important. It's important work.
Yeah, I would also add that in order to be a good listener, you need to be prepared. You
Mm.
just can't show up at the last second, sort of screech the
Mhm.
tires, be there on time, and then just turn on your ears, right?
Yeah.
You have got to be prepared to anticipate what the other people in your meeting are going to be saying. What is their
Mhm.
expertise? Where do they come from? What's their cultural background? One of the fascinating things to me, it seems like, particularly over the last 10 or 12 years in American agriculture, we have a lot more cultural diversity of experts in agriculture that come from all over the world. And
Mhm.
that certainly has been true my entire career. I remember very vividly having a classmate at the University of Illinois who came from what turns out to be a really big farm in Brazil.
Hmm.
And him encouraging me to come to Brazil and to work in Brazil. And that seemed like such a faraway place. And he was a bit of a one off, right? Example of
Mhm.
a fellow student. Today, if you walk on our campus at the University of Illinois, you see people from all over the world,
Yeah.
and many of them are in agriculture. I think the majority of the master's and PhD students in the College of now ACES, Agriculture, Consumer, Environmental Sciences at Illinois are not Americans, right? And some of
Mhm.
that is economics because the university generally is going to earn a lot more uh, tuition revenue and other revenues from foreign students,
Sure.
but a lot of it has to do with the fact that we're a very universal world where
Mhm.
education and opportunity bring us in connection with other people. So understanding something
Yeah.
about where they come from and what their culture background is is part of that preparation for listening, in my view. So.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Fascinating observations, about what's going on in the industry today, and let's talk just a little bit about that. And you've had such a storied history as a ag trade, association leader. You've been at the forefront. You've seen agriculture evolve dramatically over the last 50 years. What would you say? I'm interested in this. Let's go here first. So, what would you say? What's one of the biggest challenges that you've had to overcome in that 5 decades of serving the industry?
So when I came to CropLife, it was then called the National Ag Chemicals Association in
Mm-hmm.
1988. Some folks whispered to me something about a human health issue called the Delaney Clause that was in the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. So most of us who work in agriculture, when we think about ag policy, we think about the Farm Bill, we think about USDA.
Mm-hmm.
Occasionally, we think about laws like the pesticide law, FIFRA, and EPA, maybe FDA if you're in the animal side of agriculture, which would acquaint you with the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. But nobody had ever explained to me that the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act had anything to do with crop production. But it very
Mm-hmm.
much did, and it had this one clause that was added by Congressman John Delaney from New York in 1958 that basically said, based on the science of the times and what medicine knew about the causes of cancer and how to prevent and treat cancer, that the law, this clause, said that no human activity can intentionally introduce anything into the food supply that might be a known or possible cause of cancer
Hmm.
at certain levels. And detection levels at that point in time in the late 50s were in the parts per hundreds.
Mm-hmm.
And now, fast forward in the late 80s, and we are able to detect things in parts per trillion. And a zero standard just wasn't going to fit given the legal challenges that some environmental organizations had brought against certain pesticides being in violation of this particular provision in the law. And through several years of litigation, it was clear that the only solution was to change that part of the law. And so I heard about this. The next thing I know, within 2 months of me starting on the job, 60 Minutes covered the issue because an environmental organization had decided to target one particular product of a CropLife member, which was a product used to stage the ripening of apples. The product was called Alar. Some people remember that. It's now a
Mm-hmm.
long time ago, so not everybody has heard of Alar and apples.
Sure.
But that 60 Minutes show on February 28th of 1989 that aired at 7, I think 28 p.m. I remember it vividly. Had Ed Bradley, one of the hosts of 60 Minutes, starting to talk about this issue, and behind him on the blue screen was an apple with a skull and crossbones on it. And
Mm.
the next day, parents all over the United States were rushing to take apples out of their children's lunch
Wow.
boxes. There was a story of one state trooper that tracked down a school bus to take some apple pie out of a kid's lunchbox. Meryl Streep, the actress, was on the side of the environmental community. It
Mm-hmm.
was a full-on battle. It took us 8 years to get that provision in the law changed.
Hmm.
And
Wow.
early on, I was part of a leadership group that said, we in the crop protection industry and maybe with Farm Bureau can't do this by ourselves. We need a big coalition. We created what we call the Food Chain Coalition that still exists today. And even with all of that might, we had over 300 members of this coalition. It took us 8 years to get the political will in Congress to pass the law that changed that very simple Delaney clause in the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act.
Wow.
So the effort was only successful because we had a huge village of folks in the ag community that worked together to get this done.
Yeah. Wow.
And it took patience. I love the idiom that says patience is a virtue,
Mm-hmm.
except when it's not. So, uh, most things that are difficult require patience and perseverance.
Mm-hmm.
But you also need to know when it's time to say enough and to have built up enough of a momentum and coalition to push things across the finish line. And sometimes it takes 8 years, right? So,
Yeah. Yeah. So whatever happened with Alar, was it finally allowed to be used? Did it get banned? What was the outcome for that specific
so it was. It's never been banned in the United States.
yeah.
The company at the time was Uniroyal Chemical Company,
Mhm.
who most of us knew as a company that made automobile and truck tires, but they also had a very significant chemicals business, some of
Mhm.
which was devoted to crop protection products. They withdrew the product from apple applications and other food crops. The product is still used today as a growth regulator in
Hmm.
landscape and horticultural plants, and mainly in
Okay.
greenhouses. So that's a shock to some people who thought they had a great victory and banned the chemical, which is absolutely not the case. But
Yeah.
the company gave up on the beneficial part of the product just because of the PR nightmare that it had been through. So
Mhm. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. What do you see as the so that's a thank you, by the way. Thank you for sharing that story. I did not know
yeah.
that, maybe from a contextual perspective, I knew about that, but the detail that you just shared is really fascinating. Um, I'm assuming that a lot of other instances like that have come up. It doesn't seem to me that it's getting any easier for ag to keep
Yeah.
farming, the way that it wants to farm. If you had to make a prediction, I mean, where do you think we are in another 10, 20, 25 years?
So I think we're at a really important inflection point
Mhm.
with regard to where innovation can continue to take us in agriculture. One of the reasons that I've had a real affinity for working with a number of clients that are focused on precision and digital agriculture is that that's a innovation category that doesn't have the kind of burdens of regulation that we see
Mhm.
in chemistry or biological inputs or pharmaceuticals for animals, a lot of fertilizers that are more heavily regulated. uh, but I think particularly for crop protection products, whether they're synthetics or biologicals, we're really at an important inflection point in that the backlog of decision making on new technology at EPA is at the worst place in my career, and it's not any one person's fault. It's not abject leadership of Republicans or Democrats. This has been going on now for over 20 years of just that mission creep, if you will, that is sort of endemic for any large organization, particularly governments. We had a similar problem that built up through the 90s, and it was exacerbated by all the new regulation that flowed from the solution to the Delaney Clause in 1996, because we had to accept a whole bunch of other new regulatory constrictions in the law that replaced the one that had this zero risk tolerance for
Of course.
intentional cancer possibilities. Uh, and we got that fixed by introducing and passing legislation that President George W. Bush signed into law in 2002 that
Mhm.
allowed the industry to pay a huge amount of new user fees to EPA to better resource EPA, and that worked off the backlog and set the process into a more logical, understandable, transparent fashion for crop protection companies. But gradually, all of that has now gone away, and in combination with the fact that Congress has not kept up with their appropriations obligations in resourcing EPA, we've got this huge new backlog. Administrator Zeldin was at the AgriPulse Summit Monday this week and
Mhm.
bragged about the fact that he's brought the backlog of total pending actions at EPA for pesticide products down from about 15,000 to 8,000. And I give him lots of credit for that. Unfortunately, that's the low-hanging fruit, and the really important new innovation products that require a lot more staff work at EPA are still
Mhm.
being held up. And in fact, I've got 3 crop protection clients right now that have new active ingredients that are registered and being used by farmers in Mexico and Canada for 2 or 3 years, and we still don't know when EPA is going to get to those registration approvals.
Oh, wow.
And and the you would say, okay, well, innovation's still getting through in other countries. I'm sorry, that's just not good enough. The Getting an EPA registration for a crop protection product in the United States has been the gold standard in the world for 60 or 70 years. And
Mhm.
they actually have a version of your new label from EPA that's called the Gold Seal letter. And basically, then as a company with a new product that's registered in the US, you can take that Gold Seal letter to any other regulatory agency in the world, and it gets the process jump started, and you get a lot more uniformity of technology adoption by farmers around the world, and that's a benefit for trade, which is something we desperately need to get back on the track of here in the United States.
Mhm.
So I'm really worried that we are on the verge of killing the innovation goose for at least for crop
Mhm.
protection products, and it's not just for synthetics; it's biologicals as well. So
Yeah, of course.
if we can get past this, which we're working again with some new coalitions for some of my clients, both trade associations and companies, to kind of unravel this Gordian knot again and get back to faster, more predictable science-based regulatory approvals, then my prediction is 10 years from now, the amount of technology that's in the pipeline right now for innovation for farmers, in addition to being able to better manage those
Mhm.
technologies with precision agriculture and digital facilities, the, our ability to produce more and healthier food and get it to people in a manner that is more affordable is just unbelievable. And I'm
Mhm.
incredibly optimistic, but we got to get past this little crossroads with the backlog of decision making and science based approvals at EPA.
Yeah, that's wild. That's really interesting. And so it's not exclusive to the chemical side. It's the biological side and everything. So we've got a hang up in the government that's preventing us from effectively being more innovative and doing good things. Yeah.
Right. And you know
Well,
the cost of bringing a new synthetic product to the market has gone from probably 20 years ago it was under $200 million, and today it's probably approaching $500 million of sunk cost. And so the boards of directors of these companies, whether they're privately or publicly held companies, are looking at this and saying, so much of my patent life is gone. If and when I ever get a license from EPA to go to the marketplace, it's hard to recoup that kind of investment. And increasingly, you're seeing fewer and fewer companies doing discovery research. They're relying more on some innovation coming from startup companies, which is great, but it
mhm.
has its limits, right? We need to get back to something that approaches more regular order in the licensing process here.
Yep. Yep.
Sorry for that deep dive, but
Yeah, I
I
think
think
it's
it does
great.
tell a story about.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
I'm glad you shared it because I wouldn't have thought to ask that many questions about it, and also it gives us all a little bit of a purview into what's
yeah,
really going on behind the scenes and what's happening because there's so much frustration, general frustration in the consumer market, right? Because whether the story is true or not true, it is the story that is
right.
largely, I think, believed, and so it doesn't really matter whether it's factual or not. That is the storyline that's currently being consumed and bought and spread, right? And so we And I know we walk that fine line just within my own house, right? I'm married to someone who came from Italy originally. My mother-in-law lives with us, and she's Italian, and so they have a very different view of agriculture and food
Yeah.
production and how they do things. And the fact of the matter is, I can go to Italy when I go with them, and I can eat everything without all of the same food discomforts that I do have when I eat here in America. And
Mhm.
so there's a very clear difference in my eating experience
Yeah.
when I go there versus what I have here. So what is it? And if that's happening for me, it happens for millions of millions of others. And then what do we do
Mhm.
with it? Of course, I understand the conventional side and understand a little bit more of the science behind it, but we still have plenty of
Mhm.
conversations, and sometimes it's
Sure.
I'm trying to educate around the dinner table,
Mhm.
but they don't buy it. Okay. So Jay, if my own people aren't buying the message, right, then
Right.
I promise you those that are buying a different message from the media, from social media, from, Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn and whatever else, well, then guess what? That's the cards that we're dealt, and we have to figure out how to deal with it. And if we don't want to end up resentful, then we've got to get intentional and find ways to make
Yeah.
stuff happen. So yeah, really interesting. I want to ask another question. So what has been so that's a big challenge and a battle that you had to fight. What's one of your biggest
Mhm.
wins? What would you consider a win from your career?
Um, so so that solution of the Delaney clause that
Yeah.
took 8 years was an incredible win. By the way, to my knowledge, it's the only major environmental law, the Food Quality Protection Act, that President Clinton signed into law August 6th of 1996, that ever passed Congress without one single dissenting vote. Uh,
Wow.
and 3 months before that, everybody thought it was still an impossible task, that we'd never get it done. And again, persistence allowed us to find the right political metrics to get it done, and get it done in a way. It's a very comprehensive bill that didn't gain one single dissenting vote. Now, it passed by unanimous consent in the Senate, so I'm sure there were senators that otherwise would have felt compelled to have voted no just for some other political purposes. But it's an important milestone.
Hmm.
Surviving that then and getting it implemented, I had some board members who wanted to fire me because they thought that I was responsible for all these new requirements. So you solve one problem and other problems get created, and all of that had to do with, just again being persistent, finding people that would listen, building new coalitions even within my own membership to get through all of that, working very closely across the channels of the food sector with food companies, with farmers, food exporters and importers, and all the rest. But we got
Hmm.
all that done. I would say, outside of specific issues like that one I described, to
Hmm.
me the biggest victories were being able to give back, as I continue to try to do through volunteer efforts with youth organizations,
Oh yeah.
including 4-H and FFA and FFA and AGR. And it's, you know, inspiring people to realize there's a great career opportunity that can allow you to do a lot of good for humanity and the environment and the planet in the future by being involved in production agriculture and the food sector, and can contribute that way. And
Hmm.
it doesn't get any easier scientifically. So the young men and women who are going to graduate as undergrads in ag schools across this country
Hmm.
here in the spring of 2026 have got to have so much more scientific acumen and
Sure.
capabilities, whether they're doing a scientific job or not.
Yeah.
So being inspired to be ready to take on that future leadership opportunity, I would say is the most satisfying accomplishment that I can reflect on. So
Beautiful. That's great. I think it's so good, so rewarding to see young people come up, through those organizations. I'm a
oh
product
yeah,
of it, from a product of the
yeah,
um, pushing the feeding the world campaign that started in
Yeah.
the 90s,
Yep.
maybe earlier, but I remember it coming up as an FFA kid in the late 90s in Minnesota. And
Yeah.
yeah, Hank, come work for XYZ company, be a part of feeding the world. We've got, 9 some billion
Yeah.
or potentially 11 billion people that we're going to have to feed, and we don't know how we're going to do it. And this is the big challenge. And I do talk a lot about this on the show. I'd certainly be interested in your take on it, Jay, as well. My my interest has really formed around. I think we're at a you mentioned as an inflection point in a different way, but I also think we're at an inflection point in this. It seems to me we are feeding the world. We're doing a good job of that. What do you think now is the new North Star for the agriculture industry? Of course, we're going to continue. It seems like almost table stakes. We have to feed the world. Of course, we're going to feed the world,
Yeah.
but maybe with the United States not necessarily being the low cost provider of everything, to the world now, and maybe having to innovate in our own markets
Yeah.
a little bit. I think. What do you think? What is our North Star today? What is where are we going?
Sure. So I think it's being able, particularly for American agriculture, to do, I would say it's not even a better job. It's to just get started in being able to have the facts to show that our farming is maybe not the lowest cost. You're right. I mean, I
Mhm.
think now we have to concede that, in most years, Brazil is going to be able to sell beans at a lower price, soybeans at a lower price
Mhm.
than we can from the heartland of the United States. But are they doing it in a way that has environmental outcomes that are more costly for the health of the planet than the way we farm? And I think that's absolutely true for our major crops, and probably even more so true with a lot of our horticultural crops, where we have to use higher priced labor, and a lot of those fruit and vegetable and nut crops require a lot of hand labor. There's a lot of advancement going on. I was just at the Western Growers New Innovation Center for
Mhm.
robotics in Salinas, California last week. Tremendous commitment on behalf of Western growers and a number of their members to put resources in play to allow startup companies that have robotic technology and development to actually use it in actual working farms, which is a different environment than working on a test farm associated with the university or an extension service. So I do think that we have to get better at telling that story and having facts, but also continue to advance the environmental performance of our farming footprint.
Mhm.
We got a great story to tell today. It needs to get better continuously, and it is. A lot of the innovation that we're talking about will get us there, but we also have to then be able to be competitive. So at World Agritech in San Francisco last week, a member of the administration came to me while I was at one of my clients' booths for Corvian, where
Mhm.
we had in our display a blurb about how we have expertise in helping measure carbon intensity for crops that go into biofuels. And this person asked me, what does that mean? And I'm interested about this because the short story is we are losing the war on telling our story about lower carbon intensity for our biofuels as
Mhm.
compared to our South American competitors. We all know that they're still reducing their amount of forest lands, and some of it's rainforest. While the truth is that over the last 10 years, we have converted 10 million acres of American farmland into timber, and yet that's not part of the carbon intensity scoring
Mhm.
that
Uh-huh.
allows us to be able to have a level playing field or have an advantage in our biofuel export potential versus that coming out of South America.
Huh.
So there are lots of opportunities for us to do better and tell our story and have better measures of our comparative advantages.
Right.
So the environmental outcomes piece is a big one, and it's been in front of us forever. I actually think we owe Bobby Kennedy a debt of gratitude for bringing Maha into,
Mhm.
the the full awareness of the American public.
Hmm.
Not because I agree with everything he says, particularly about crop protection inputs,
Yep.
but the whole notion of getting people's attention beyond just a small niche of folks on the internet, that we all need to pay attention to what we're putting into our bodies as nutrition. And
Yeah.
to your point about the difference between eating in America and eating in Italy,
Hmm. Hmm.
we can learn from folks all over the world, and we continue to be able to innovate to grow better food, right? So I think that's the real new frontier, that if we take it in stride and see it as an opportunity as American farmers, we've got
Hmm.
way more to gain than it will cost us with
Yeah.
regard to changing practices or changing cropping systems or whatever. And one of the big opportunities is protein, right? So
Hmm.
at the AgriPulse Summit here in DC on Monday, there were several panels that really talked about the importance of consumers awakening to the value of protein. And our animal sector has got so much upside potential in fulfilling those demand needs and working with consumers and the food companies to get it done. So that's all
Yeah.
really exciting. And it comes back to yeah, we're probably producing way more calories in farming around the world than
Hmm.
humans need to consume. But we don't have it in the places where there are a lot of hungry people who can't afford expensive food, and
Right.
everybody wants to eat better. Even those of us who eat too much want to eat better, and there's profit and production opportunity for us
Mhm.
as American farmers in particular.
Yeah. I love the angle that you're taking with that. And I'm, for the most part, I think aligned with it. It's almost, can we graduate from feeding the world to feed the world better?
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
and I do agree. I think the Maha movement, if you will. I mean, I had been living in it long before Kennedy ever came to, be the leader of it.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
I do think, yeah, obviously he's brought a lot of awareness to it. But for me, it just
Hmm.
started as an experience. I mean, I just noticed like, hey, like I hit
Right.
40 and my body couldn't eat things the way it used to eat them, and it couldn't drink them the way it used to drink them. And
Mm. Right.
and you have to start paying attention to the way that you feel, and you're like, and then once you actually take a corrective behavior and you recognize, oh, you don't have to feel that foggy in your head anymore. You don't have to feel the
Mm.
heaviness in your gut anymore. That actually was from what you were eating. And for me, that was just, it was a
Yeah.
very visceral experience, the skin issues and things like this that just
Yeah.
probably were there my whole life at a lower level. And then as you age, then it gets
Right.
amplified, right? And my daughter's a
Yes.
type 1 diabetic, and so since she was 2 years old,
Mm.
and she's now 18, so for 16 years we have had this walking petri dish in our house. And so you can notice when she eats certain things, blood sugar spikes, and when she
Mhm.
doesn't, it doesn't.
Yeah.
And so you learn it. You just, from pure survival, you learn all these things over time. What it did for me is it made me very aware. It just brought awareness. And I think we just, generally speaking, based on the thousands of people that I've personally trained and coached over the years, over the last 15 years specifically, we lack some awareness, right? And I think we need to bring
Mhm.
awareness. It's part of my intention with the show, is to bring awareness to some of these topics and concepts, and think about, hey, if
Yeah.
in fact, I think that we actually missed a major opportunity with the Maha thing, in that somebody in ag with enough money and power should have appointed an influencer before Bobby Kennedy got there to lead that movement. I
Right.
think that we missed the
Yeah.
opportunity because we could have had
Yeah.
more of a say in the message, right? Instead,
Absolutely. Yep.
somebody who was more of the antithesis of what a
Mhm.
lot of us think that we stand for got the reins and now controls the message. And so you're sort of left to react to that instead of lead it. So I think that we missed that. Yeah, personal
Yeah.
opinion, but hopefully we can be a part of it and be more proactive. And that's where I'm coming. When I keep beating this drum on the show and in speeches that I give and places that I go, and I just say, hey, like, so what is the North Star? What is the North Star? We're actually thinking about putting together a conference, a leadership conference, where we just tackle
Mhm.
that. we bring people in and actually debate on the stage. Maybe we can get Bobby Kennedy, to go toe to toe with Jay Vroom. I
Yeah.
don't know. um, I think that would be cool. We're looking at that for potentially 2027. So, anyway, Jay, it's been a real pleasure. We're at 40 minutes on this already, and so we've got to bring it in
Sure.
for a landing. But any last thoughts, pearls of wisdom that you would love to share with the group?
Yeah. So your team had told me that you might ask me what books do I recommend.
It's
So
going to
I've
be
got
my last
two.
question. So let's go there. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Leon Hesser's book, biography on Norman Borlaug.
Hmm.
I had the great blessing to get to know Dr. Borlaug. He was a member of our CropLife Foundation board of directors for a few years. I worked with his team across Africa. I've been to Summit where he did his original work and outside of Mexico City on low stature wheat. Just an amazing person. What a leader. What a devoted, committed American farmer and scientist. And then I can't let this go. Orion Samuelson's book, You
Oh
Can't
yeah,
Dream Big Enough. Since
beautiful.
Orion just passed a few days ago, I'm moved to remember how much impact he had on my life. He was on the radio and on WGN in our house 24/7. It seemed like as I was growing up, and then I got to meet him as a
Hmm.
college student, and we became good friends. He was always so kind to me, and
Hmm.
what an incredible leader. So those are
Yeah.
two books and two people that I just think I've been so blessed to have been touched by. So
Beautiful. Those are great recommendations. Nobody's ever recommended them before, so we're gonna put them in the Jericho Library, which is our AI performance management tool that we've built. And so we
yeah,
work with people and companies to build individual playbooks that help people advance their career. And so and it's a living, breathing playbook. It's not a one-time growth plan that your AR person or HR person
mhm,
puts together. It's a living, breathing growth plan that
yeah,
grows with you as you grow,
mhm,
and it recommends resources that help you at different capabilities or with different capabilities that you have. And so
yeah,
we're going to put those,
fantastic,
we're going to link those up in the library, and hopefully people
good,
will get those assigned to them. It's great. And I have to, since you brought up Norman Borlaug, I have to share this. And so when the year that I graduated in 2004 from the University of Minnesota, we, I was the president of the student board for the College of Agriculture, and we lobbied with the dean to get to select our uh, commencement speaker, because prior to that, the dean had kind of been in charge and nobody was a big fan of the selections. And so we made a list. He allowed us to make a list, and then the leadership would reach out to that list. And so we put in a rank order, and we thought, and I think Borlaug at the time was something like 90 years old, or I think he was 95 when he passed or something like that. So this was just towards
yeah,
the tail end. And so we asked. He was the first person on our list. We didn't think that he would have the time or maybe even be able to travel. So we asked him first, and he accepted. So that morning, the morning
wow,
of commencement, May 14th, 2004, I got to actually go to the university president's mansion with my parents as the student board president and have breakfast with Norman Borlaug and all of the folks from the College of Ag, and the professors, and it was just a
mhm,
really cool thing. So I actually got to sit next to him there. I got to sit next to him on stage at commencement, and spoke before he
wow,
spoke. Thank goodness, because he crushed it, and was really, really incredible. So yeah, big place in my heart for him. So, Jay,
cool.
thanks for being on the show. Great recommendations on the books, and great historical background on the ag industry. I think most of us don't know. So, thank you.
My pleasure, Mark. Thanks for all you do.
Mhm.